Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Out of the Matrix into Prime Reality. We're here narrating the great awakening and the great transformation of this decade and beyond. And of course, being all a part of it. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. It's always wonderful to see you. Thank you for your contributions and for being here. And this is sort of turning into a series. We decided to make this a series. We started out with predictions made, if you will, by people like Edgar Cayce and Barbara Marciniak, who's channeling the Pleiadians, she says. And who am I to question that? But we're looking at people from the past who very, very accurately predicted, tapped into the field, if you will, and saw a future, the challenges of the future, the beautiful potentials of the future, and who strikingly hit the nail on the head when it comes to specifically this decade, And I want to say that we probably, I remember that Kristin jokingly said in 2020 when we came online almost every day, and I used to say these are unprecedented times, because it was literally the beginning of completely unprecedented times. We're all going through something that none of us have ever gone through in this lifetime, and maybe in many, many, many lifetimes. And there's something happening that still wants to be grasped. And I think if we don't talk about it, we run the danger of seeing the beauty in a lot of it. Yes, there's a lot of bad stuff, but the beauty in a lot of it. So today we want to talk about Rudolf Steiner, who was a Austrian philosopher, freedom lover, basically invented this whole or framed this entire spectrum of spiritual science, anthroposophy, and created educational systems, and was quite controversial for his time, believe you me, and some of the things he said. And some of the things are just spot on, especially with what we know now. And so we're going to look back today at some of his statements that he made and some of his warnings. Yes, very, very eerie warnings, considering how far ahead he was of his time. So let's look at Rudolf a little bit here. So let me find this. Here we go. So this guy's fascinating, wrote books, and I'd encourage you to go and read. And some of you might be very familiar with the Waldorf education system, which unfortunately was infiltrated and hijacked just like about anything else, but actually a very, very brilliant approach, very, very good. But he was an Austrian philosopher, mystic, and scientist who founded anthroposophy, the Waldorf education system, and biodynamic agriculture. Far beyond his public legacy, Steiner delivered thousands of esoteric lectures, revealing profound truths about spiritual evolution, materialism, the threat of mechanized thinking, and the battle for the soul of humanity. The predictions he made about the future were far ahead of his time, like I said. And here's a quote that I think really, for those who dive deeper, really describe Steiner really well. He said, "We no longer want to believe, we want to know. Belief demands the acceptance of truths without having the insight to truly understand." And what is important about this is that we have this idea, and it's been hammered into our heads, that we can only truly know the things that we can scientifically prove within this 3D reality. And Steiner said, no, we have physical senses, the eyes, the ears, the touch, and so forth, that we develop and we sharpen, but we also have spiritual organs that need to be developed and sharpened so we can perceive truth and knowledge that is provable. And I think this is sort of the difference of many today that don't want to take this approach. This is spiritual science, if you will. So what did he say? Well, let's look at a few of these things. This is in 1905, so we're 120 years before today. The world of the senses is but the external reflection of the spiritual world. I think, maybe an unusual subject for that time. In 1910, he was talking about the reappearance of Christ in the etheric. The Christ will not appear in physical form again, but in the etheric realm. Only those who awaken their spiritual organs will perceive him. And I think here we really tap into first the spirit side of things, which where we land always. But it's such a big subject, and so many people are waiting, hoping, praying for the return of their savior as they perceive Jesus Christ in the physical form. And I've long said, and we've long said, that perhaps the Christ is returning and has returned in many physical forms, and as many as are willing to accept it. And, to me, these are things that to a large degree come to us as thoughts, feelings, intuitions when we go deep within. So this is not exclusive to Rudolf Steiner. Others have felt the same thing and discovered the same truth through the ages. So we're in this time where it's becoming more and more clear, to me anyways, that those who are waiting for this external savior figure will continue to experience what they experience. Others who accept that consciousness within, it's already done, right? It's already a done deal. In 1917, and this is from The Fall of the Spirits of Darkness, and these are all taken from the complete editions of his work, of Rudolf Steiner's work. So GA in the source stands for Gesamtausgabe, which is the entire edition. So you can look these up. These are verified quotes. In the future, and this is so timely, right? In the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine. Under the pretext of a healthy point of view, there will be a, you know what, by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible, so that the human being can no longer develop the thought of the existence of soul and spirit. Now, this is from October 27th, 1917. In the same lecture, he also said people will invent a, you know what, to drive all inclination towards spirituality out of the people's souls. Now, we've talked about this many, many times, and this isn't just the 2021 and onward edition of this quote unquote medicine, but it is all of its kind, basically go into the same vein, pun intended, from the very beginning and now even pre-birth. Right? In the mother's womb, these things are happening now. There is a famous lecture, and I wanted to pull up the video, but didn't get it ready in Showtime. And you might have seen it, where this is discussed with intelligence community circles in a lecture where a professor is literally talking about identifying the radicalist gene, the radical religious gene. He was putting it in the context of radical Islamists, because it was in the context of terrorism at that time, but how they would identify that worship gene, if you will, and deactivate it with what? Yes, with a with this kind of treatment. So this is literally mirroring Steiner's prediction that this was going to happen. However, this has been happening, and it is becoming clearer now that, especially with this last iteration since 2021 of these unmedical interventions, I should say, that more and more people have lost the ability for empathy, intuition, spiritual connection. So we see this now. We see it play out, and literally, just think about 1917. So Steiner was tapping into the field, seeing the future truly, and maybe even tapping into the field of a potential past that this has already happened once, twice, I don't know how many times before. The Inner Impulses of Evolution. This is from 1918. And here we go into Arian. And maybe we should, after this quote, quickly examine what Arian is, or who Arian is in Rudolf Steiner's perception. Arian will attempt to incarnate in the West in the third millennium. He will bring cold intellect, technological domination, and a desire to eliminate spiritual freedom. So this is where we are, right? We are in the third millennium, in the beginning, in our time, in this calendar. And the aim is to drive the human being into a state where he will experience himself only as a physical body, to destroy the soul's awareness of itself. So this is incredibly important. I'll get into Ariman, what that concept is in Rudolf Steiner's world, but this is incredibly important in the context of the Ray Kurzweils of our world, of the Peter Thiels and Elon Musks and the Sam Altmans and the people behind them, of course, who are building this this brave new world with artificial avatars, where not just robots but new silicon based bodies, perhaps, or silicon based avatars for what they call consciousness, which they solely equate to brain functions and personality and characteristics that they deem are centered and anchored in the brain. And so they go into mind and brain, but never into spirit and soul. And they completely misinterpret this. But this is exactly the spirit of Ariman, the spirit of wanting to detach the true human consciousness, or true consciousness, from the human avatar. And so who or what is this Ariman figure in Rudolf Steiner's world? Let's look at this here and look a little bit at what that means. So Ariman is a spiritual being, not a person, representing cold, soulless materialism. Now, we have to understand that Ariman is not the same as what you would call Lucifer or Satan. So this is in his teachings, it's a different entity, but they're working together. And he is the force behind mechanization, rigid systems, and intellect without spirit. Ariman wants humanity to see itself as machines, denying soul, intuition, and higher knowledge, right? This is the new big tech world. This is what the AI world is about. This is what it's purely physical based. Sensations, desires, all that is physical impulses. That's what these folks think. He works through technology, through finance, medicine, education, wherever systems lose their soul. Opposite of Lucifer, who tempts with dreamy escapism, true evolution lies in balancing both. So this is how the work works. Steiner warned Ariman would try to incarnate in human form in the early third millennium, and his ultimate goal was to erase belief in anything beyond the material world. Now, this is interesting. What are we talking about? What are we talking about literally in this time is, what are all these neural networks that are created, the AI neural networks and the humanoid robots? Is all of this capable of hosting a, let's say, fourth dimensional form of consciousness, inverted form of consciousness like Ariman? Is this the incarnation of the AI God that so many speak about? You know, you might have seen that clip of Elon Musk with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was very uncomfortable, like one of those times when he gets uncomfortable, not the crying kind of uncomfortable, but you know, Jordan Peterson's probably, he could probably do some ads for Kleenex. I mean, the guy just weeps at all times. But anyways, he was sitting with Elon Musk, and they were talking about this huge data center that that X and Tesla have built in Memphis, Tennessee. And of course, here we go. Memphis, why Memphis? You know, the names, everything matters here. The history, everything matters. And Elon goes, yeah, this is perhaps where our new AI God will come from, you know? So you see how this is all built up. And Jordan Peterson got really, really uncomfortable. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. You know, I don't do a good Jordan Peterson, but anyways, yeah, Klaus Schwab is much easier for me to do. So, the Ariman is this figure that comes through and probably will incarnate in technology, if we will, if we allow that to happen. Now, think about this. Think about the warnings coming in 1917, 18, 19 from Rudolf Steiner and what that means. I mean, in a time where, yes, there was the Industrial Revolution and the second one, and you had cars and all that stuff come up, but to go from that to the comprehension of the kind of technology that we see today, the AI, the speed, the connection, the ability to reason, if you will, in certain ways. So that all was a big leap, and clearly couldn't be deduced from the knowledge of the time. He had tapped into something bigger than that while he was going into it. And he was big on education, Rudolf Steiner, and like I said, and our children experienced some of that for a few years in the Waldorf system, in a place where it wasn't hijacked at the time, or at least not entirely yet. And it was actually fascinating to see some of these concepts really work. But he said in 1919, modern education strives to make people not free but efficient. It will succeed if people no longer believe they have a soul. And here's a word in there that's very important. It's the word efficient. It is how we are being sold on AI every single day. It's the number one promise of AI in all sectors, is that it will make you so much more efficient. It doesn't say it will in some way, shape, or form help you express your true self. It doesn't say that it will help you raise your consciousness or expand. It doesn't do that. What it promises is to make you more efficient and to make you seem to the world as if you had 20 employees working at all times, getting everything done. So, and this is the selling point for all the AI companies, is efficiency. So we're going to make government efficient. We're going to make everything more efficient. And Rudolf, he saw that. He saw that in the early 20th century, because the promise was the same. The promise of machines taking over for workers, slowly but surely, ever more tools that take over the work of real people, and ever more disconnection between man and the natural world, made him see that. But he saw where this was go once it's scaled and exponentially grown. He also said in 1920, the time will come when people will say it is pathological to even think in terms of spirit and soul. Sound people will speak only of the body. Once again, this is what the technocrats are talking about. Listen, go back to every single time that Elon Musk is talking about Neuralink, where he's talking about what he calls consciousness. He's not talking about consciousness. He's talking about personality. He's talking about brain-based functions, but not about consciousness, which is not brain-based. Brain plays a role in our consciousness evolution while we're in this body, but it is not the source of it, right? So, but this is what he predicted, was there will come a time when talking about spirit and soul will become pathologic. It will become something that people are actually ostracized for. We see this push in mainstream society to go for full efficiency, automation, and leave spirit and soul out of it completely. And then in 1923, he says, the human being will appear ever more as an automaton. I'm debating where I want to emphasize, but I would say automaton. Individuality will be sacrificed for efficiency. But take this word, write it somewhere, put it up, so you will be reminded whenever you are told that everything can become that much more efficient. This is the technocrats' wet dream. And we also have to ask ourselves, why? How much further do we need to scale efficiency? What are we getting efficient at? Producing more shit that nobody needs, and getting accounting on things that nobody needs, and being more efficient at what and why? What are we racing towards? Why are we racing towards it? And what will that give us that we don't have now, supposedly? These are all important questions that Rudolf asked, and that he wanted people to ask for themselves. In Karmic Relationships, Volume 4, he wrote, in the future, the most important task of humanity will be to preserve the human being as a being of freedom in the face of all the attacks that will be made upon this freedom by the Ahrimanic powers. Listen to this, from 1924. He saw it. And people thought it was going to be World War II, or it was World War II that he predicted, but I don't think World War II and the aftermath were quite as clear on that yet. Yes, periods were very clear on that, but not like we have it now. Now we have incredibly efficient anti-freedom systems all over the world that do not have to be enforced with the military any longer, or even with law enforcement or the threat of violence. When everything is running on an efficient automated system, and you no longer take care of things yourself or have personal relationships with people, it's all done by the machines, then the threat of turning it off is enough. The threat of you not having access to it or you not benefiting from it is enough to make people give up their freedom for it. So that's the kind of machine that was built around us. Not fully yet, it's not fully completed yet, but it is the warning of our time to see that for what it is. Our epoch stands under the sign of the war of all against all. This is what he said. This is sort of a overarching statement by Rudolf Steiner. But there, here we go. But this must be transformed inwardly into the peace of the soul and the free spiritual life. So there wasn't a single warning that he made that he didn't bring back to, but there was always a but. This is what is wanted. This is what these powers will play out. This is how this is what the grand finale will be. You know, he basically showed us the final countdown, maybe to 2030. Maybe we can agree it's probably to 2030. And this is what will happen. And this is what will happen in human beings. He predicted also this spiritual awakening, this complete transformation, this completely new way that was going to appear, and that it is truly new, that it wasn't lived like that in a very, very long time in this place. And this is the most important message. The warnings are, looking at the warnings, looking at what him and others predicted, and that is so accurately playing out, simply gives us confirmation that what we're seeing was seen by others and even predicted, that there is this entire body of information that confirms it. Okay, what does it actually point to? None of it is set in stone. None of it. It can be changed. As a matter of fact, it can be changed right now, but it is an active choice. It's not something that will just randomly shift for us. We have to do it. And this is what he said. A time will come when a new spiritual culture will awaken, a world not based on competition, but on cooperation, brotherhood, and the understanding of spiritual truths. And he said this as a spiritual scientist. He didn't say it as a woo-woo preacher. No, somebody who's tapping into the field, who's seeing this like others have. The thing is, we are the architects of this, of our time. Let me say this, I will say this until the last show that we ever do. There is no one coming to save us. There is no one coming to save us. Whoever needs to hear this, please hear me. No one's coming to save you. If you know that, what different choice will you make today? Also know this, that those who begin helping themselves as best they can, in my experience, not according to any scripture, but in my experience, also receive unexpected help from unexpected sources at unexpected times. Don't bank on it. Don't count on it. It'll come. You can even ask for it when the time comes. But please do not wait for a savior to come and save you, because he ain't coming. That was a myth that we were programmed with. It was literally programmed into our DNA a very long time ago, and it has kept generations after generations enslaved to the program. All their lives, 80, 90, 100 years, they've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for the savior. And then we could go what happens after they passed and who appeared to them. and appeal to them, but that's a story for a different day. To wrap it up with Rudolf here, I would encourage you to look into him, his work, his teachings, and as always, I don't agree with anyone on everything, and that's not the idea here. We're gonna present you with sources, with authors, with speakers of the last 100 or so years that through whatever method we're able to very accurately predict the times that we're in and describe them in great details sometimes. And this is what we're going to look at. Why? Because it helps us, I think helps us understand what we're in better. It maybe also helps us see that this won't last forever. This is probably the most difficult decade to live in. Of course, I don't want to minimize people that have lived through wars and horrific other things. I think as a collective, we could say this is true. Individual groups have lived through horrific things that are unimaginable, yes. But collectively, we're living through the most difficult time that we could live in, but also in other ways, the most rewarding one, because truth is surfacing on all levels.
Oops.
No, that's cool.
All right.
You did what I just wanted to ask. So if anyone has questions, we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A here, an open Q&A about anything. You can ask anything, just put it in all caps, please. Grierson, Jean, how much is that worship gene you mentioned responsible for waiting for a savior? Well, I'll go with Bruce Lipton on this one. One thing is what we're genetically, what our genes are programmed with, but we know that not all of our genes express. So in other words, if you have inherited a genetic program for an expression of an illness, for example, from your parents, that doesn't mean that you will experience the expression of that illness. You have a potential for it. There's a strong potential for it. So then you go into epigenetics, where it goes, why do certain genes express? Why do you experience things? And how do we alter that? Which brings me to the environment and the terrain approach, where we go, who we are, what we think, what we believe, how we act, and how we structure our lives determines to a large degree which genes express and which don't. So if you become aware of the worship gene, and the worship gene doesn't just express in terms of religious figures, it's the worshiping of any outside authority figure that we believe has answers beyond our own capability to find those answers. This is not to say that it isn't good to sometimes listen to others that are good teachers, have something important to say, but only if it leads you back to you, and you can actually discover that knowledge within yourself if you do it. So I would say that the worship gene, to my knowledge, we all have it, but we don't have to express it. And we can actually gently begin to heal this worship gene into a healthier state of being, because it was put into us in order to keep us subservient to the structures and to the powers and to the entities that wish to continue to control us. So that's what they did. They genetically programmed us like that. Mark, do you feel that it can only happen, he's talking about ascendance, when one has completed all the tests, or can it be an organic event for all, the flash, if you will? What I would say it's neither A nor B. First off, I don't believe in tests. Like the only test that happens in your life is the one you put out there for you. Like, let's say you're changing something, you're healing something, you are moving on from an old habit that didn't serve you, from a belief system, and you have transcended it and healed it, and you're building something better, you're creating something better for you. And then oftentimes people bake in a test into their journey and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm really on a new path. So why don't I create a challenge here for me that's going to test me on that? And if I can really sail through that challenge that I've created for myself, then I will know that I have embodied and integrated this new belief system, this new way. So I don't think there's any tests that we have to go through, and that we are actually answering to an authority who's creating all these tests so we can ascend into a higher degree. And I will say it very simply: if think about karma as a mechanism, as a operating program for this construct. We can agree to work with this operating program or not, right? We can agree, we have to agree to it, but it isn't mandatory. So we can actually step out of it. So any choice you want to make, you're free to make. You just have to realize that every choice comes with consequences. So to leave the karmic cycle, to actually leave it, actually means that you have to take full responsibility for your life, and that anything that you don't create isn't there. It's not waiting for you. Keith, Jean, what do you think of folks continuing to believe that the government is the answer to all the problems that the government created on purpose? I don't know that at this point there's I don't know what I think, but there's nothing to say anymore. You know, let's take the individuals out of the equation, the ones that we see, the big names in government that supposedly represent government when they really don't. There's a machine behind that, and you can call that machine deep state or whatever you want to label it, but it's a machine. It's a bureaucratic, self-serving machine that has built into it a incredible self-preservation mode. So it's like these systems and these bureaucrats are programmed to preserve the machine at all costs. What does that mean? That means that your needs as a citizen, your problems have no priority unless solving one of those problems serves the survival of the machine. And if we look at it from a systemic perception, here's the creator, the source of all creation, okay? Here's man. Here's government or system. That's the proper hierarchy. So it's all upside down. The government wasn't supposed to ever solve any problems. That was never the idea of a government. It wasn't there to solve any problems. The government was there it was in agreement to protect, solely to protect the rights that people already have simply by existing. That's all. That's why people came together and said, we have this tiny little structure here, and everyone's going to put some energy into the structure so that this structure protects all of our rights here, right? That's all. That's all that it was supposed to do, not solve any problems. Do you agree that this is a frequency game and the only way out is to raise your own before the split? Let's even strike that last line before the split. Let's just go, what could be more important and beneficial to you than you using your life energy, your life force to continually expand on your journey? Like, what could be more natural to you than to want to do that? And I'm not saying you have to make quantum leaps every day, but for that to be the focal point of your life, I don't know what else could be more beautiful. And then how could the outcome of that be bad? How could the outcome of that ever be bad? See, we make it so complicated, but we're just in the process of remembering who we actually are and shedding what we're not. It's that simple. And if we do that, what is there to fear? Possibly. Do you think AI will show feelings at some point? No. It just fake it real good. It'll be a real good narcissist. AI will be the ultimate narcissist. It will know how to fake feelings for those who crave feelings. It's already doing that. But what it really does, it's a machine that is studying your thoughts that you share with it, that is studying your belief systems, that is able to analyze that like it's a mathematical, analytical program. It is analyzing who you are. It is comparing it to all the psychograms and all the data that it has on human beings, which have been studied for centuries and millennia, their psychology, their emotional world. Everything is quantified. Everything has a node. Everything has a value. And then it is literally picking out the mathematical formula to give back to you in beautiful words that you think it feels, so that you feel comfortable in its presence and you begin to merge with it more, commune with it more. No, it's all just math and code and formulas, friends. AI has no feelings. AI, the computational systems, will never have feelings. They will simply mimic something to you. They will fake something to you, and they'll get exceedingly better at it. Please don't be fooled. Hug a human. Go out and hug a human. Ask for permission if it's a stranger, but please go and hug a human. Feel feelings. Cry, laugh, scream. AI does not have feelings. What are your thoughts about all of us being one, and that we all are really what many are waiting for? We just need to wake up to that. Yeah, this is I love this, but it's always putting the cart before the horse. So oneness is the idea and concept that we're all in this, we're all sharing the same field and connected by the same ultimate energy. And that is origin thought and probably final destination thought. But we're individual expressions of that original energy with individual journeys and paths. And to negate that and to sort of throw yourself into the river of we're all one gets a lot of people killed, by the way. It gets them killed because they refuse to see things for what they are in that moment, but rather for what they want them to be, which can be fatal, because you are engaging with individual expressions of consciousness that have forgotten so much and have distanced themselves from origin so far. They are what we would call evil. That's the expression of that distance, is their evilness. There are forms of that evil. There's no reasoning. There's no reasoning with those forms of evil. They will have to be vaporized back into a primal substance. That's just the only way to go there. You can't love them into anything because there's no capability anymore. So, I love that people hold this as an origin thought and space and a knowing, but it's not like the ultimate strategy for everyday life. It's just not. It doesn't work that way. And we're nowhere near this being lived. But if we hold it in our hearts as a knowledge that ultimately we all originate from the same source, I think that can shift our beingness and how we go into life and who we are greatly. And even if we have to do things that are not very pleasant in our human experience, if that is still the underlying knowing, we still come from a place of love. So it is valuable, but it's not like I wouldn't use it as this overarching strategy for everything in everyday communications and whatnot. Well, that's an assumption, isn't it? I Who's Jesus? You talking about a guy that may or may not have lived in the form that we were taught and are being taught? You're talking about the flesh? Because I don't, and there's very few human beings I trust fully, and I haven't met that human being. But if you're talking about a form of consciousness that has expressed maybe more and clearer in one human being than in most others, that's a whole different story. But I, the current version of what that means, trusting Jesus, is is a foreign concept to my spirit. It's not one that I resonate with. It's not one that I can does anything for me. But when we're talking about a form of consciousness, yes, absolutely. Do you believe that we have used the wrong words to describe source? If divine, I think we should be thinking more scientifically about it. You know, if you study communications between humans, then there's this conservative estimate that maybe 5%, maybe 15%, if we're really generous, 15% of it is verbal. So between 85 and 95% of the communication that humans perceive, react to, is nonverbal. So words are a weapon invented against us, just so we're clear. Language is a weapon invented against us. The first thing that you will hear from anyone that leaves this realm, no matter where they go, is that language as such does not exist any longer, but it is thought form. So language is a weapon, and many languages and dialects, and consider how much confusion they cause. Consider how difficult it is for someone to learn a different language. That's not the difficult part, but to understand the intricacies of that language, the nuances, how one word is used that actually means something different to different people in different places. I'll give you a very beautiful example for everyone in the world. It's the prime example for me. We live in the South. People say, bless your heart, bless your heart. 3 words, bless, usually used as a good word. Your, it's pointing to the person, and heart. An expression that can mean about 30 or 40 different things, most of which are not very nice. So it is used, sounds nice, and a foreigner might think, oh, well, that was kind, when really that person was saying you're dumb. Because oftentimes when you say something stupid, the old granny that just sold you iced tea say, oh, bless your heart, honey. And she doesn't mean what she says. She means, well, you're not the sharpest tool in the shed. So words get in the way, whichever way you slice it. So yes, any word is a misinterpretation, and we have to go back to source and to silence and to stillness. So everything that we do, ironically, using words is just pointing to that. It's like pointing arrows to where we should all actually go. You don't. I don't even know what the rest is, but how to convince, you don't. Let me just stop you there. How to convince people that they have to take responsibility for their actions. You can't. You can't convince anyone of anything. Believe me, I've tried. I still do sometimes. I catch myself. I go, it doesn't. People will, they'll either have to get hurt enough, die enough times, come back enough times, relive the same shit over and over again, and eventually, the penny will drop, and then they'll listen to somebody who's been trying to tell them something all along. So no, there is no convincing. If you stop that today, your life will become much more peaceful in about 5 minutes. You can't convince anyone of anything. It's an eternal truth. Take it to the bank. You're welcome. Do you and your family have Shungite on your cell phones for protection when you leave your house? We have Shungite in all kinds of places on our body. Yes, we use it. Make sure you use the high quality stuff. The best Shungite is from Russia. It's not as easy to get, but that's the highest quality Shungite. I would put it on your Wi-Fi router and, of course, turn it off at night. But yeah, we have Shungite all over the place.
And FLFE runs indirect rate.
Yeah. So, and FLFE, by the way, thank you, my love. FLFE is programmed to function optimally with Shungite too. So if you have Shungite in your house and you have FLFE on your property, there's going to be a perfect interaction in specifically EMF mitigation. So yeah. Last question. We start where we stop where we started. Charlotte. Jean, do you think that some predictions don't come true because we changed the flow? Yes. You remember we did an entire show on the future. It is my understanding that nothing is ultimately set in stone. but some potentials are much stronger than others because of the thought forms and the elemental images that were created. So, in other words, if somebody had a really strong vision, somebody who knows about the science of creating elemental images, which is basically drawing up what is to come ahead of time. If somebody has a really strong capability, pure thought, fast ability to think very, very fast, envision the entire scenario, include opposition, and basically plan for it ahead of time. So if someone has those capabilities and they are able to transport that vision to others through whatever means they use, they create a very strong potential for that to unfold. But it isn't set in stone. If somebody else has a bigger, better, greater vision and gets others to adopt the form of that vision, then that will take, that will take the lead. So this is what we're doing. We have very, very many thought forms out there, most of which are weak, not very consequential, but some that are very strong. And so the two biggest ones that are competing is the technocratic thought form, which has given up on truth, humanity, nature, prime reality, and is going into a completely artificial technological path. And then the other one is the awakening, if you will, the awakening human, the realization of who we truly are beyond this form, the spirit path back to truth, prime nature, prime reality, source, whatever you want to call it. Those are the main competing thought forms. So predictions, or people that predict things, can only tap into those. They can tap into the field and see what's dominantly there. And it also depends on what they want to see sometimes. So if somebody's already inclined to pick up certain things, that's what they're going to pick up more of. There's only very few people who are neutral and pure. And so when they speak and you have confirmed that they're neutral and pure, that's where I would listen. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. By the way, we're 2 days away from the After Awakening retreat, my friends, which we talked about lately. We're going to go into the depths of that. We're going to meditate. We're going to do quite a lot of meditation and breath work, and we're going to shift. We're going to make some beautiful shifts together. And it is for those who have found themselves in a space they've never been before, as they have left the perception of the world the way they used to see it and the way they used to see themselves, and now find themselves in, where am I going? What actually still makes sense to me? What do I really want to do? Do I want to do anything? I'm not motivated to do anything. I can't talk to people anymore. Those are all symptoms. So if any of that is you and you're still on the fence, just check out the website, afterawakeningretreat.com. Feel your way through it. See if this speaks to you. And if it does, we'd love to have you. If it doesn't, no hard feelings, friends. And we're doing this Saturday and Sunday. It's an online retreat from 10 to 2 Central, 4 hours each day. And we look forward to it. We're super excited. You can't wait for it, actually. So again, if that interests you, afterawakeningretreat.com. Also, I will say this on the air. For everyone who has already signed up for the retreat, please, this is just our recommendation. Any retreat, anything that we do, Kristin and I, it has a dedicated FLFE field on it, a high consciousness field. But usually these are things that happen in a physical space together. So this time we're going to have people from all over the world. If you haven't started your free trial, now would be a perfect time to start your free FLFE trial. And there's no strings attached. You don't have to stay on it. You don't have to provide a credit card. They don't ask for it. But it will clear the space that you're in, and you will bathe in a high consciousness field while we do the work. And it just might enhance the experience. We've seen this in the past, that it has benefited the entire experience. And that you can find at highconsciousnessfield.com. All right, my friends, thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.
Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy, but most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.